I'm Anna Lee with Broadway in Chicago, and I'm super excited today to be chatting with
Norm Lewis. Yeah.
Lewis coming in. So if you're tuning in, if you have any questions for Norm, go ahead, leave them in the comments, and we'll get to as many as possible. Norm, thanks for joining us today. Welcome back to Chicago.
Thank you for having me. Are you kidding? This is a great city.
So you have been to Chicago doing Chicago Med, and
right.
Specifically, how was that experience for you and being in Chicago? Were you here long when you
No,
were here?
that experience, I mean, it was great, but it was very short, unfortunately, because I knew some of the people that were in the cast, and so I really wanted to get a chance to kind of hang out with them, but, you know, it was an in and out thing. I played this weird character, but it's based on facts, where he had a stroke, and he became the nicest guy in the world, and he was giving all of his stuff away, and then I had another stroke, and I became a mean guy, so, yeah. Mental illness is real.
Have you been able to ever spend extended time here in Chicago during your
Not
career?
really. I've been here several times, but it's always these short little stints. And funny enough, it's one of those things where you want to stay longer because, you know, I think you guys have 3 good months that the weather's really good. And usually those are the times that I show up. But yeah, no, I have good friends here. And hopefully these 2 weeks are going to be fulfilled with a lot of good stuff.
Oh, absolutely. Is there anything specifically that you are looking forward to doing or seeing or eating?
Yeah, the deep dish pizza.
Of course.
You know, there's so many other great restaurants here. Plus, like I said, hanging out with my good friends. Hopefully I'll get a chance to do a Sox game, you know?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. It's just starting out preseason.
Yeah.
Here we are.
Yeah.
Here we are. But I see a few more people have tuned in here. For those who are just joining us, I'm Anna Lee with Broadway in Chicago. We're chatting with Norm Lewis. So if you have any questions for him about a Soldier's play coming here soon, go ahead, put them in the comments. We'll get to as many as possible. But I want to start out at the kind of the early inklings of your career. And what I found really interesting is that you originally went to school for business.
Yeah.
And now you're here. Tell me
here.
about that journey.
And I'm here with you in Chicago. Yeah, I was being practical. My parents wanted me to have a good, solid base of money making projects. And so I thought the business world would be that. And I actually worked in advertising for a newspaper for about 4 or 5 years, the Orlando Sentinel, plug out for them. And, had a good run, but I would always sing at night and different contests, or sometimes people would say, hey, can you sing for our band or whatever? And it was just a hobby. And someone saw me singing and they asked me, they said, you know what, I need someone like you on my cruise ship. And that's how I got into this business. I joined the cruise ship, met people from New York. They inspired me and said, hey, you really have something here. So why don't you come to New York, try your luck. You can study in New York and take your voice lessons, acting classes, dance classes, and see what happens. And the greatest advice I was given was by my supervisor at work with the Orlando Sentinel. Said, you don't want to be 85 years old saying coulda, woulda, shoulda. So said, go for it. If you fail, you fail. You fail forward. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So did you not do any theater even in school growing up?
I did not in school, but
okay.
While I was still in school, I did work for a community theater, and I did a couple of little things here and there. Again, it was just a hobby. It was just something to do. Never really thinking that it was going to be my vocation, my life, and somehow it found me. I grew up actually playing tennis, and I wanted to be a professional tennis player. And it was back in my day, because I'm an old man, back in my day it was Arthur Ashe and Bjorn Borg. They were my heroes. And so I wanted to be a combination of those two. But I was good, but not great. And tennis is a very expensive sport. And the universe put this performance thing into my life, and I found a new passion.
Absolutely. How do you feel that your experience with sports and business and advertising may or may not have helped you in your career today?
Oh, I think they all help. That's a great question. I feel like the sports gave me the discipline for what I do, and you need a lot of discipline and passion to do this industry because it's so ephemeral and so fickle, and people are coming at you in different ways, good and bad, and so you have to be a strong person within. I would say the business thing, it helped me because I'm more of an entrepreneur, and it's also, I see this as a business. It definitely is an art form, but you got to make some money to make the art. So I actually, at one time, while I was on Broadway for a couple of shows, I got my real estate license. So during the day, I would work as a real estate agent, and then at night go do a show.
Just a few minutes prior, you mentioned the greatest advice that you have received. And in an interview, you mentioned one of the best pieces of advice that you give performers is to believe in something, namely yourself. Mm-hmm. And I think on the surface, that's easier said than done.
It is.
So how would you best give advice to, people believing in something?
Well, it's all about, I guess, the common word is spirituality, and you have to have a sense of self. Like, for me, I know that, like, especially with my singing and my acting, but it's a gift. As it is given, it can be taken away. And in fact, I've been on stage in the middle of a show where my voice just left. And I didn't know if I was ever going to be able to sing again. So you got to have a sense of who you are. Like, I'm Norm Lewis. If I never sing again, I will still be Norm Lewis. And, I will always find my way in this world through that. And so I have a strong sense of course, I will miss the singing. Of course, I don't want to, give that up. But if it does go, then I have to find another way to navigate through this world.
When you're not on stage or in rehearsal, what can we often find you doing?
It's funny. I have this fetish, if I can say that, on Facebook Live, of reading a lot of business books. I love entrepreneurial ventures, and I like to encourage, especially a lot of the young actors that are coming out of college because they have such a major debt, to learn, especially in this environment. You can make money at home, e-commerce, affiliate marketing, all kinds of stuff online. You don't even have to leave your house. So you can supplement your income, support your craft as an actor by doing these things, but still not losing your sense of finding the art within you.
Speaking of diversity of your craft, you're not only a performer in theater and on stage, but also TV shows and voiceover work, and a little bit here, a little bit there. What continues to bring you back to the stage versus hopping over to LA and being in movies all the time?
Well, listen, the television and film world is fantastic. Believe me, I've met some amazing people. I've done some amazing projects. And I hope to continue to do that. Wink, wink, nod, nod. If anyone's out there listening, I need a job. But there's nothing like live performance. There's nothing like being on stage and having the reaction from the people that are coming to see you. And it actually helps you. It gives you energy as a performer to do the best that you can. But also, it's frightening because you don't want to mess up. And there are things that you have to put into place, the rehearsing process and all that, in order to make the show the best that it can be for those people who paid a lot of money to come and see you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Your career is so vast. Here is a little snippet of his bio. It's so wonderful. If you could go back to any role,
Ooh.
what role?
Wow, that's a great question, because they're all kind of like, I don't have kids, unfortunately, but these are my kids, and so it's like saying, which one do you love the most? I love them for different reasons, and gosh, that's a great question, because I've gotten and learned a lot from each individual role and the research that I've done and stuff. If I had to choose, it's a hard one. That's a hard one. I'll have to come back to you on that one.
Totally. Well, I want to jump to your work with the Black Theater United that you were one of the co-founders of, and you say in an interview, we decided to create a coalition to make things better. We have a mission to bring equity, diversity, and inclusion into the theater, not only on stage, but behind the stage as well. Right. And one of, I saw that you're really working on right now is this, a new deal for Broadway, coming out of COVID. Tell us a little bit about where that new deal stands right now and how we can best support BTU in this effort.
Thank you. It started with the pandemic, George Floyd, all of that combination of what was happening in this country. And I remember LaChance, who's one of the founders and also our president, she put out a tweet like, "Where are the producers? Where's the support for a lot of the Black actors out there, the people of color?" And Audra McDonald responded to that. They got together, then they called all of their friends, and we had a Zoom. The Zoom lasted at least 4 or 5 hours, just talking and talking. And because people just felt like they needed to express themselves. And so we said, okay, how can we best serve our industry by having a voice and making a difference? So we put together Black Theater United, and over the pandemic, for about 6 months or maybe a little bit over, we connected with theater owners, with producers, with heads of unions, with creatives, directors, choreographers, and we had meetings, and then we had sub-meetings where each individual group could express themselves and put out what they were doing as far as diversity, equity, and inclusion. And from that, we had a collective of notes and all kinds of information to, because it was honest conversation. I mean, we went really, really deep, and we formed this new deal to hold people accountable. It's not law, it's not the Constitution or anything like that, but it is a guide for us to have this conversation. And it's holding each of us accountable. And most of everyone that was in that whole, summit signed on to this. Some people didn't. Some people liked certain parts and didn't like other parts. But that's okay. This is a marathon. It is not a sprint. So we're going to continue with this. And in order to support what you were asking is just, I guess, holding people accountable. Like I said, there's been diversity on stage, which is great. You have shows like Hamilton that shows diversity. But we want to be at the table behind stage and be in casting, be producers, eventually one of these days theater owners, so we can have a voice and say, let's think about that and think about this, or let's not say certain things that might be offensive to someone because you probably just didn't know that it was offensive. So it's one of these things where it's an ongoing evolution of diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Absolutely. And before I get, I do want to plug, if you want to keep up with Black Theater United and then what they're doing, you can find them on Instagram, Facebook, all the socials. You also have a website.
Yes, blacktheaterunited.com.
There we go.
And it's theater is spelled with an R-E, not E-R. We had to be fancy,
Absolutely. With that, what advice would you give specifically Black creatives in this theater space, both on and off stage, when it comes to paving their way in this industry?
Show up, show up, show up, show up. A lot of times we hear that it's, it doesn't matter, no one's going to pay attention or any, things like that. And it is a struggle, it is a challenge. So believe me, I'm not discounting that, but show up, just keep creating, keep putting your stuff out there, getting it in front of a lot of people. And that's what, there's other coalitions that are out there, Black Theater Coalition, Broadway Advocacy Group, Broadway Advocacy Coalition. It's so hard for me to say that, but they're such a wonderful, fantastic group because they won a Tony last year, a couple of years ago. And we're all saying the same thing, and we're all just trying to make a difference in this industry, and even beyond that. We're teaming up with a lot of great corporations. We might even try to, we have to be careful because we are a 501c3, but we might even try to change legislation within the context of what we can do. We try to make sure that we encourage people to vote because that's the number one thing. That's one of the number one rights that you have. So we're not telling you who to vote for, but just know that your vote counts, and so we want to encourage that. There's a lot of things that we have on the horizon. We have mentorship programs, and I think that was your original question. I'm just going through this whole diatribe, but what was your original question again? I'm sorry.
What was my original question? Advice for Black creatives in this space.
Just keep creating, keep showing up, because actually, there are avenues right now where people are being showcased. And as you can see on Broadway, there have been several shows in the past couple of years that have been showcasing a lot of Black content and also a lot of people of color content. So.
Speaking of those types of stories, you are in a soldier's play, and that's why we're here to chat
That's
today.
why we're here, yeah.
Absolutely. Tell me, what made you say yes to the soldier's play? Because this is a play, and a lot of your resume is in musical theater.
Right.
Now, no more music or theater, but or still theater. But I mean, I'm so excited for the show. Why did you say yes to this project?
Well, number one reason I would say is because of Kenny Leon. Kenny Leon, our director, he and I have been friends for many years, but we've never worked together. And so the chance to jump at that opportunity was just, I had to do it. Secondly, I've never seen the play. I saw the movie, and that left an indelible mark on my life back when I was a young guy in my 20s when it came out in 1980 something. And so knowing that Charles Fuller's work was being presented on Broadway a couple of years ago, winning a few Tonys, I just had to kind of, for them to come to me and ask if I would be interested, I had to. It was just, I couldn't turn this opportunity down. Plus the fact that it was getting a chance to spread this message across the country, a message that is so needed. I said, yeah, I had to. And also, it's such a great tour. We've been to some amazing places, and one of them being Chicago. And just can't wait to come here and do our thing.
Absolutely. As you've been developing your character of Captain Richard Davenport, you mentioned in an interview you did with another publication that you bring in things that you've experienced in your own life to the character. What are some things that you drew from when you were developing?
Well, Captain Davenport, first of all, I'm honoring and standing on the shoulders of Howard Rollins, who I saw in the movie. So trying to bring his grace and elegance to this role, but also the fact that I've been in spaces where I have been the only person of color, the only black person in the room. And me having the title, not trying to be self-indulgent, but me having the title of being the first African American to play the Phantom on Broadway, standing on the shoulders of Robert Guillaume, I felt like his character, being a captain at that time in 1944, was significant and a mark of a first. And so I was like, okay, I understand that. I kind of, at least in my own little sphere of knowledge, I understand being the first or being the only and being looked at in a certain way and having that responsibility on your shoulders and trying to uphold that. So I hope that resonates on stage through my character and the subtext.
Can we talk about the courage it takes to, what you were just talking about carrying the story on your shoulders, and I keep pulling from other things you said, but about the show, you say to honor the ancestors, your ancestors, because of their struggle, I am where I am right now, and I would just love to know about what you do, one, to take care of yourself, holding, I don't want to say it's a burden, but just this responsibility, yeah. No, I think because I feel like people are going to be looking at you, and you being a person of color yourself, I think people sometimes look at you and then they see the entire race behind you. You know what I mean? So at least that's what I've felt all my life, and so I feel a responsibility to my race. I feel a responsibility to my culture. I feel a responsibility to this army and the men that served at that time. There's just a lot. It's a lot, but I take on that responsibility and that accountability, and so it's such a great group of men that are on stage that support each other, that also I think feel that as well, because we want to honor. I call this the Charles Fuller tour, because he passed away back in October of last year, and so this message is so vital, and because as I think it's in King Solomon or one of the books in the Bible, there is nothing new under the sun, and so history keeps repeating itself. We don't want to give away the story or the plot of the show, but there's some events that happen in this show that resonate to what is happening right now in our country in 2023. Well, we are nearing the end of our time, but to round
No.
this out, I know there's just so much
No.
to talk about. The resume.
Don't go away.
The resume.
Come
There's
back.
so much. But
I feel like the color purple.
I do want to talk about now. What do you hope, folks? What kind of mindset do you hope folks go into this show with? Because it's not in Chicago yet.
No.
You have time.
Yeah.
But what do you hope folks like go into the show feeling?
Well, come with an open heart and an open mind, and just know that you will be changed. Whether you know this story or not, you will be changed. And whether you agree with everything or not, you will be changed. I'm going to steal from my good friend who's in the show, at least I think we're good friends, Eugene Lee, who was in the original company, and he always says, you cannot hate anything that you understand. So I think that's a very powerful statement.
Awesome. Norm, thank you so much
Thank you.
for sharing your time and talent with us. Y'all who are watching, come out, come see A Soldier's Play. It's not in Chicago yet, so don't worry. You have time to get your tickets. It is here April 4th through the 16th only. So come on out. It's at the CIBC Theater. Tickets are available at BroadwayInChicago.com. You won't want to miss it. It's a bit of a thriller.
Yeah,
It's really
definitely, it's a murder mystery.
Murder mystery. Get ready. It's going to be really good. We're going to see Norm on stage here. All that and more details at BroadwayInChicago.com. Norm, thanks so much.
Thank you.